Hello and welcome to our webinar tonight. I'm Hunter Allen and I'm going to present to you guys tonight on basically just power Q&A. I've got some amazing questions here. It has been really fun reading them and accumulating them, looking at them, thinking about them. It's really exciting. You guys, lots of great people out here, lots of smart folks, and lots of great questions. So I'm going to do as many questions as I possibly can tonight and hopefully get through them all. At the same time, you might have some questions on top of the questions. Some of my answers might inspire more questions. I hope they do, actually. If you have other questions, put them in the little question box here on the right side. So let's see here. I thought I had a little slide in there about the the basics or the webinar thing, but that GoToMeeting control panel on your right there. If you've got a question over there, just plop it in there, and then that would be great, and that will be easy for me to answer when I get done with all these other great questions. So. I don't have anything special to show you from a presentation side all the way through, although I've got some slides and some things that I want to show you that help answer some of these questions all along the way. So I'll just keep this single slide up here until I get to those things, and then once I get to them, then we'll start going through those. So, all right, without further ado, let's get these rocking and rolling. We got lots of great questions here tonight. So I've got a question here from Matthew. Matthew asks, when doing intervals, say 5-minute VO2 max, do you want the power to be pretty consistent throughout each interval, or do you want to give it your all in each? When I stay consistent, I feel like you usually have good energy left to finish them all, but only the last couple are at race effort. Is it better to go at race effort on each, even though my power fades towards the last couple? So that's a great question, Matthew. So when doing VO2 max intervals, the whole goal is really, to get into that zone. You want to be in that training zone that is so critical to that. So that's the first thing you do. So reminder here, I'll show you the power training levels here. That's the thing that we want to make sure that we're always addressing. If you're in the VO2 max range, for 5 minutes, and typically 5 minutes is going to be between about 113 to 115% of your FTP, then you're addressing your VO2 max. Now, I like to start the VO2 max intervals relatively hard because I want them to create enough lactate in the body that your body has to really respond to that stress, and then deal with that, all right? Because when you do VO2 max intervals correctly, you are at your VO2 max. You are panting. You are breathing hard. Your breathing rate is what I call desperate. You know that you can't maintain it for much longer, and you're hanging on by a thin thread. Okay, that's the VO2 max type effort. So I like to do them so that you start out strong. So let's say, for example, if your FTP is 300 watts, then 113% of that would be like 320, 330 watts or so, maybe a little more, 335. Then you may start out and you do 380, right? But just for 20 or 30 seconds, and then you settle into 335, 350, something like that, and hold it as long as you can. Now, if you tail off at the end and you can't do even 300 watts in the last minute or so, then you're not addressing your VO2 max system anymore. Okay, so you need to still be in that range to address the system. So if your threshold is 300 watts, 106% of that, is 318 watts. So you kind of stop the interval when you're not doing it anymore. If you're still doing 310 or whatever, maybe keep going just a little bit, but that's the key. So I always want to kind of, I want to start hard, and I want to make sure that you're in the range all the way through the entire effort. Okay, so hopefully that'll help. hopefully that'll help. I love doing the race-winning intervals. Okay, so maybe that's one that you're talking about here. This workout that I talk about fairly often is in my book with Andy Coggin, a race-winning interval. When you attack in the beginning and you're out of the saddle for a sprint, and then you're back in the saddle, you're trying to hold 200% of your threshold power in the first 30 seconds, and then you're trying to peak it at 300%, and then 3 minutes you're hammering at 100% of your FTP, and then you're finishing with a little burst at the end. That's always a great one. All right, so let's move on. Okay, Lester asked, how can I finish strong with a group after a 61 miler? I normally get dropped in the last third of the ride. So one of the things that you always have to focus on, Lester, is the fact that you're going to focus on your FTP, your functional threshold power. All right, that is fitness. I mean, that is what we talk about when we talk about fitness. Is you got to have a higher FTP, and if you have a higher FTP, you're going to go faster. I mean, you know, for somebody who doesn't have a power meter, and I try to explain this to them, what does it mean? I say, okay, well, if your best average speed is 20 miles an hour, but the group is riding at 23 miles an hour, you're going to get dropped, okay? So you need to have a best average speed of 23 miles an hour so you don't get dropped. In order to improve that, you've got to improve what we call your threshold power. So the best thing for you to do to focus on, Lester, is doing intervals in this range. So from 10 minutes out to 60 minutes, and you need to be between 91 and 105%. I love 10-minute intervals. I love 20-minute intervals. I love 30-minute intervals. And so if you look at these threshold intervals right here, level 4, you know, you're starting out at 3 by 10. Then you're going to 4 by 10. Then you're doing 3 by 12. Then 3 by 15. Then 2 by 20s. You're focusing on those intervals, and eventually you're getting to 2 by 20s. You know, maybe 3 by 20s, maybe even 4 by 20s, depending on your effort. So focus on those. He follows up with another question. If there's one interval between overall and fitness, what would that be? You got it right here. Bingo. Level 4. Focus on that one. When power fluctuates, what's the best setting to put your power meter on? I had it on real time, but I was told that's not the best. You know, I really, so there's a difference in between, and this segues nicely into Jeff's question, which is coming up next. There's a difference between the recording interval, the rate at which you record the data, and the display rate. All right, so Lester's talking about the display rate. How quickly should the display rate update for best pacing? So most of these default to, you know, real-time updating. You know, as you produce the power, the number shows up. However, that can be, you're kind of like chasing your tail a little bit there because the number updates so quickly and your power changes so quickly over every pedal stroke. So I really like a 3-second average. If you can do a 3-second average, that's really nice. If you can't do a 3-second average, then I like a 5-second average. Much longer than a 5-second average, it doesn't update fast enough. So then you're on the back side of the equation. It's updating too slowly for what your perceived effort is. So I like 3 or 5 seconds. All right, so hopefully that'll help you out. All right, so the follow-up question there, then Jeff asks, what's the best recording interval for most power meters? Well, Jeff, you want the most data you can possibly get. So if you can get it faster than a second and you've got plenty of space on your device, I would record at a faster than a second, okay? Not everyone does that. Not all of them do that. Most of them record for about a second or every second. So the most popular one, the Garmin's, recorded a second. So definitely do that. And make sure you're off of the evil thing called smart recording. Smart recording is not smart recording. Smart recording is dumb recording. It's horrible. It's fine for GPS, but it doesn't work well for power at all. You know, if you think of it as a line, let's say if you watch my cursor on the screen here, you're riding along here, and then what happens is it records a point on this line, and then it records a, you know, you're still on a straight line, doesn't record any other point, so you get to this line right here, and now you turn right. Well, it records a point at this corner here, and now records a point here. But you miss all the stuff that's happening in here. So it's great for GPS. It's fine for, you know, creating a track on a map, but not for a power data. So 1 second is best. Another question Jeff has here is tractor pulls in quadrant 2 all around or during the season to keep the strength up. You know, I am a fan of them all year around. You know, it's super important that you get in plenty of quadrant 2 work. It just is absolutely critical in that, especially if you you know, that's big part of your cycling, right? If you're a mountain biker, if you've got steep hard hills coming up, if you've got you know, if you're lacking in muscular strength, then yeah, I would do it. You know, I mean, I would absolutely focus on that and do the best you can. Let me show you a mountain bike race that was done by a guy here in Germany. This is I'm going to totally butcher this, the Schloss Kammergut race or whatever. It's a 4-hour race, a very tough mountain bike, ultra endurance mountain bike race. If you look in quadrant analysis of this bad boy, you see that everything, almost everything, 89% of this race was in quadrant 2. All right, so this guy is a mountain biker. He loves these longer mountain bike races. He has to spend a ton of time in quadrant 2 doing tractor pulls, riding, big climbs, all that stuff. So I would highly recommend it. All right, one more thing here, quick from Jeff. Do you find 65% training, isolated leg training, correlates to reflect double leg value as well for correlating a tool for training? If I understand what you're saying here is, if you're saying that doing one-legged training correlates to, you know, just one leg is 50%, the other leg is 50%. You know, yeah, it isn't always that clear. A lot of people have leg strength discrepancies, and you know, I've seen that people with 10%, 5% is my upper limit. If you get more than 5%, you got to work on it. So yeah, I hope I answered that question there for you, Jeff. All right, Abdel. Abdel has a question here. In a bike trainer with a power meter, are we limited to train only the maximum aerobic power, or can we train all the other physiological areas? No, Abdel, you can train all of them. I want you training in all these different areas here. Let me show you that that training zones again, you know, in here. Now, I don't spend a lot of time at active recovery except for between intervals. You know, that's why I'm doing it, right? In between intervals, I'm trying to recover from the interval previous, okay? That's what I'm doing there. I don't spend a lot of time at endurance pace on my indoor trainer. Now, that's because my goals aren't, you know, long endurance. You know, I don't need a tremendous amount of those things. You know, my athletes, I've got athletes who've spent, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours on an indoor trainer. This past year, I coached the winner of the solo race across America. Jana Schufelt, she won the women's division. She regularly did 10 and 12 hours on her indoor trainer. Yeah, she's an animal. And, I mean, you know, 10 and 12 hours on a trainer would make me totally insane. But, you know, so you can train all of the zones on there if you want. The great thing about the indoor trainer is you can be super focused, right? You can do exactly the watts that you want for exactly the time that you want them at. So highly recommend you train all those. Okay, Liz asks, I have a great question here. Why do FTP tests get different readings on indoors versus outside? Sometimes what seems to be by a pretty big difference. Yes, that's a great question. So, Liz, the reason, there's a couple of reasons for this. One, the main one is that the roller that is, the back wheel is rubbing against, essentially, and that roller creating resistance on the tire to slow you down to create, so you have to produce wattage. That is at a different inertial rate, okay, so versus what you would feel on the road. So you have a lot of these trainers have a weight on the side to help slow that down or speed it up, or they may have a fan on the side that changes the way it feels, and that's essentially trying to make the trainer work correctly and or be similar to the way it might feel outside. Okay, so that's what that's doing there. But ultimately, it's very difficult to recreate that outdoor feeling, and so that's part of it. All right, you're getting a higher load than you might normally feel. The other thing is you're getting a load across the entire 360-degree circle, right? So now instead of not having much load at the bottom of the pedal stroke and at the top of the pedal stroke, you get load all the way around the pedal stroke. That's different, okay? So that's different. So somebody smart out there would make a trainer that would take the load away at the bottom and across the top, then they would make a trainer that's much more similar to the way you might feel outside. The other thing is, you know, you're locked in, right? You're locked into that position. You don't move around a lot on there. You don't move the bike a lot. We do a lot of micro rests on the bicycle. We use our upper body a lot. We use our lower body a lot. You know, we have all these things that we do on the bike that contributes to producing more power. And then the last thing is there's a psychological component to it as well. You know, you might be in your basement and right beside the cat litter box. So it's not that much fun usually, and we'd all much rather be riding outside. So there's a psychological component too. But hopefully that helps you. You can train it. I know people who ride indoors the same power as they ride outdoors, but that means that they've done a lot of training indoors. You know, they've ridden a lot indoors, so that might be the thing there. Is self-selected cadence of lower 80s too low for most triathletes? I would say so. That seems too low. Lower 80s is pushing a big gear, probably too much force as well. So I would try and increase your cadence up into the middle 80s to the upper 80s if possible. That will save more muscle glycogen and prepare you better for the run. This segues really well into Tim's question. I've been able to increase my wattage threshold, but I still use a low cadence. What are the keys to increasing cadence? Well, Tim, you know, that's a great question. A lot of us use a lower cadence because we like to rely on more strength. We have bigger muscles. We want to use those muscles and push a bigger gear, and we see the wattage go up. The other group of us, you know, who have smaller muscles, we have to use a higher cadence and rely more on our cardiovascular system to take the load to produce the same watts. So what needs to happen here is, in order to increase your cadence, the only way that you can really do this is through cadence drills. And so cadence drills are there's some really good ones out there. And I will, let me show you one. Let's see here. Okay, I've got a ton of different cadence drills that, let me type in here. I thought I had this queued up, but I don't think so. Yeah, here we go. Cadence drills. All right, so this is a great one right here. And I'll put this in the in an email to everybody as well who asked. That'll be super easy to read. That way you can try it. Basically, doing drills that increase your cadence. Okay, you're going to have to do them once a week in order to really start getting used to them. Okay, and getting yourself more accustomed to doing them. So that's the best thing that you can do. So just, you know, I'll send this out, you guys. It's a great one right here. to do these. This is an excellent one to just practice. It doesn't take a lot of wattage, and it's a great one. All right, so give you some of those. All right, my rainy day bike. Devery says, my rainy day bike doesn't have a power meter. Is it okay to capture these workouts in WKO, or it will skew the data too much? Well, I would say get the data. If you've got your Garmin on there and you're riding and you're capturing, at least most of the data, your heart rate, maybe your cadence, obviously you're getting speed, distance, elevation, all those things, that is better than nothing. All right, uploading this to TrainingPeaks.com. If you have a heart rate threshold set inside TrainingPeaks.com under your athlete settings, then you will get a heart rate TSS score. Okay, so that's better than nothing. Okay, it's better than nothing. At least your heart rate TSS. Then when you pull that data down into WKO, you'll get that heart rate TSS number in WKO. Okay, so that's pretty close. I mean, it can be within 20 or 30 or 40 TSS, which sometimes it can be way off. So you got to look at it, and sometimes you say, "Oh, it seems pretty good based on your own intuition and experience." But I would get it. I would get it. All right. I use 30 seconds and 3 seconds on my main screen, along with normalized power, cadence, and heart rate percentage. What are the best stats to monitor during training, racing, etc.? How would you recommend setting up a screen for, say, a TT or a crit? Well, everybody has a different way they want to set up their Garmin screen. The beautiful thing about the Garmin is that you can set it up in 100 million different ways. I like 3 second power on mine. I also like to see my heart rate, my cadence. I also like to see my normalized power as well. And so I look at those things on my initial screen. I have it set up as well just for intervals. So I want a screen that just shows me intervals. On the interval screen, I want to see my current power, my current cadence, and then my last lap power, and then also my max power last lap, so I can look back and see what I just previously did on those. And then I also want to see time, because I want to know when the interval's over. All right, so those are good ones to have as well. I also like a screen on there that shows me all of my key power metrics. So I want to see my training stress score. I want to see my intensity factor, my normalized power. I want to see the kilojoule burn that I have done, and some of those key things there as well. So, it makes a big difference from the kind of things that you're looking at. For a time trial, you might set it up so that you have like what you're looking at, maybe a 30-second, a 10-second, a 3-second rolling average is what you want to look at. And then that way it gives you kind of a, hey, here's one of these numbers here I need to kind of focus on. In a time trial, I'd probably focus more on the 3-second and the 10-second one. The 30-second one is just kind of a confirmation, hey, I'm still above my average that I want to be at. Also, in a time trial, I also like to look at the speed, and I also like to look at cadence. Cadence is a big one for me, and so I want to make sure I'm looking at that. And then I want to see a percentage of threshold power. So I want to get that percentage of threshold power in there as well. That's an important one for me to look at in a time trial. A criterion, I just have a screen that shows me essentially 3 things on it. I want the big numbers. I want to see them quick. I want to see where I am. I see cadence, heart rate, and power, and that's it. And it's 3-second power that I'm looking at there. That's all I want to see on that. I don't want to see too much on there. I don't want to fiddle with that thing. I don't want to know anything else. Boom. Just want to see it go. All right, great question, Devery. All right, Pam asks, after 6 weeks of training, what would a normal non-pro type rider realistically expect to see as a typical improvement in FTP? Well, that's 6 weeks of training. It's a tough question to answer, Pam, because the person who starts out and they've never ridden a bicycle and they ride for 6 weeks, they may see some big improvements, but you know, that the big to them might be relatively small to the rest of us, right? That may be, okay, their threshold power goes from 110 watts to 130 watts, or 110 watts to 150 watts. So, you know, that still is kind of a challenge, you know, at that pace. You know, obviously depending on your weight too. But if you're trained, let's say you've been training, right? And let's say you've been doing this for 3 years. You've been rodding for 3 years. You've been, you know, you used a training plan here and there. Maybe you've even had a coach. All those things, you know. And so you've done some serious training. And then you go and you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to focus for 6 weeks and go really hard. I'm going to really push myself for 6 weeks, and I'm going to do this training plan to the T, and I'm going to dig deep and go for it. You know, it's very likely that you might see a improvement of 15 to 30 watts. You know, sometimes it's difficult to see even a 15-watt improvement if you are you've been doing this for 20 years, okay, and you're kind of maxed out of where you've been for the last 10 years. So that might be a challenge. But for typical folks, you know, if you see something between 15 and 20 watts, you know, even 30 watts on the outside, that would be amazing to see 30 watts in 6 weeks. You know, 8 weeks, yeah, probably, you know, I'd probably extend it to 8 weeks to see a more guaranteed improvement. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that helps. Peter asks, let's see. He says that, I'm trying to understand exactly what he says here. He says sometimes he gets the same exact TSS for different types of workouts, but they don't always feel the same or feel like the same stress. For example, I'm a sprinter, and in a sprint workout with a TSS of 100 feels much easier than a time trial workout with exactly the same score for me. Is it true that more recovery is needed, or is it only a mental aspect, or is it because sprinters love sprinting? That's a great one, Peter. So that's been a long-standing question and a long-standing dialogue that we've talked about for many years, especially you know, Dr. Coggin and I. And one of the things that you know, there is, right, is that people deal with training stress differently. So what for Peter feels like, oh, I go into a sprint workout that was very easy for me because he is a sprinter, and it wasn't as stressful. All right, it didn't create a lot of stress because it wasn't that hard for him. He's naturally very good at it. Whereas when he goes in time trials, it's like, oh my gosh, this is incredibly difficult. I never do this, and you know, he's doing a tremendous amount of load that his body's not used to doing. He doesn't like doing. It makes it very difficult for him. So I agree, and we've been working on coming up with a better TSS score for this. We haven't perfected it yet, but we're getting closer and closer and closer to that. I think you'll see when we get WKO4, version WKO4 out here in a short time, you'll see the makings of how we're going to create that. We're going to have some individualized zones. And we also have a new thing called the power duration curve in WKO4 that's going to allow you to start seeing things from a more individual aspect. That's going to pave the way for a better score that's made for you. And so that would take that into account. So unfortunately, I don't have that yet. It may be a little while still. We still need a lot more research on this. But I agree this is the same kind of thing for a lot of people. All right, so Rob has a bunch of questions here. Rob, I'm going to do my best to get through all these, but no guarantees. I seem to be cracking out a bunch of them right now, so I'm on a roll. And keep those questions coming. I see a bunch of questions here in the question box, so keep them coming as you think of them. Looks like I'll probably even get to some of these things. So. That's good. That's great. Great. Good job. All right. What should you do in the last 2 weeks leading up to an A event. Okay, so in the last 2 weeks leading up to an A event, this is always kind of the internal question: how do I finish my taper? All right, so 2 weeks before your event, that should be your rest week. Okay, so 2 weeks before the event. Let's say the event is on March the 15th. Okay, well, then the first week of March, then you need to be resting. That should be your rest week. All right, so what you're going to do on that week is you're going to take 3 days off the bike: Monday off the bike, Wednesday off the bike, Friday off the bike. Tuesday and Thursday, you're going to ride easy for an hour and a half. All right, easy, hour and a half, super easy. Don't do any crazy things, nothing, no big deal. Saturday, you go out and you ride for an hour and a half, easy. Sunday, you go and test yourself. All right, Sunday is your test. Go do your FTP test, do your power profile test, 1 minute, 5 minute, do some sprints, see where you are. All right, at the end of the rest week, test yourself. All right, that's a great time to test yourself. Testing is training, training is testing. Then the week of your race. Now, you test yourself on Sunday. Monday, you need to follow it up with another workout. I would recommend doing some anaerobic capacity intervals, something in the 1 minute range, probably like 5 times 1 minute or 7 times 1 minute or 6 times 1 minute, something in that range. I would also do them for some VO2 max. I'd probably do 3 VO2 max intervals, 3-minute ones, do them short. You know, not crazy long 8-minute ones, but 3-minute ones would be great. High intensity, 120% of your FTP. Then I would also do an FTP interval on Monday. All right, do a nice solid 15-minute FTP interval. Done. That's it. No more. Hour and a half, maximum 2 hours. Done. All right. Then Tuesday, you go back out and then you do a little bit more again. All right. Now you do some sprints. Maybe you do a little anaerobic capacity intervals again, a couple of hill sprints or something like that. Nothing crazy again. Maybe one more FTP interval for 10 minutes or so. But make this one an hour to hour and 15-minute ride. All right. Shorter ride. Wednesday, you're going to rest off the bike. You know, Thursday, back on the bike, easy, easy, easy day. Friday on the bike, easy day. You're going to, you know, maybe do a few little jumps, a couple little sprints or something, just kind of get the legs moving, stretch nice and good. Race Saturday, Sunday. All right, that's going to be a great little taper for you. Should hopefully work out really, really well. Thoughts on the Tabata intervals, 4 minutes total, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. If you use them with your athlete, what was the outcome? Do you recommend them? Tabata intervals are very similar to what I talk about as microbursts. So microbursts are a little bit longer. They're for 10 minutes typically, and they are 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off. Tabata is 40 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 4 minutes. So what they do with 40 seconds on and 10 seconds off, you're getting your intensity a little higher because of that, and then you're keeping it relatively short. So it kind of ends up being a VO2 max interval, but at the same time, you're also addressing the neuromuscular power. So that's interesting. All right, that's an interesting. Whereas this one addresses neuromuscular power and FTP. So that's where that one, I like that when it comes in and says, okay, well, gosh, we can do VO2 max intervals with this on and off, and you're getting closer to the VO2 max range. So as long as, again, you're getting there towards the end of that 4 minutes in the VO2 max range, you should be good. All right, so yeah, they're good. I have athletes do them, and they have good success with them. What's the ideal CTL number or range that you've seen in your athletes that would indicate a peak fitness? Well, CTL is different for everybody because we have different times that we can train for. Typically, the folks who have 10, 12 hours a week to train, they can get their CTL to about 85 or so, sometimes 90, when that's their maximum, and then they taper. Okay, folks who have a little more time, 12 to say 15 hours, maybe squeak out an 18-hour week every once in a while, you can crack 100 CTL, okay, and maybe even 105 at your maximum. Folks who only have less than 8 hours, they're going to be struggling to get much over 65, 75, and then before they need to taper for an event. People who have even more time, 20 hours, 25 hours, now we're talking like Cat 1s and pros and stuff, and folks who have flexible schedules, then you're going to see in the range of 120 CTL. And so it ranges widely based on the time that you have to train, and then also what you can handle. Some people recover faster than others. So I wouldn't be fixated on a certain number, so to speak. I would be fixated on getting as high as you possibly can, and then having the taper the right way, that you do a taper. So, I would just keep driving it as high as you possibly can, and then go. Training camps are great. If you get to do a training camp in your build, where you take a vacation and you just ride your bike for 20 hours 1 week with other folks, and go to a training camp, or just do it on your own, that makes a huge jump. That's always a great little Kickstarter for it. All right, here we go. Another question here. Assume an athlete has had a decent off-season in riding inside, made nice improvements to their FTP. They go outside to train, racing season starts. Maybe there's some group rides on the weekend. But aside from periodic FTP testing, are there other indicators within WCO that would be red flags when the person's fitness is slipping, or their FTP is dropped? In other words, to build FTP, I've worked hard to add frequency and time at sweet spot and level 4. However, group rides and even some races don't produce consistent 20 to 30 minute high average power numbers, which I've used in my benchmark for fitness and FTP. All right, therefore, to me, it'll appear my fitness is slipping just looking at the average 20 minute. Should we cross-reference these days and look at normalized power to compare? Are there other things to look at to determine fitness gains or losses? That's a long one, but one thing that you want to look at, right, is you want to look at, your mean maximal power. Okay, so you can look at this mean maximal power chart right here and see how this is improving. You see this in this case, the athletes both 20-minute and 60 minutes was going up along with their 5-minute. 5-minute usually follows 20-minute and 60-minute as well. So if you've got a good FTP, you also usually have a good VO2 max. So if you're not testing yourself on a regular basis, which, Rob, that's really what you need to do here, is you really just need to test, right? You just need to test. Every 6 weeks, you just got to go out there and crack out a 20-minute time trial and see where you are. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting in the dark sometimes. The other thing that you might want to think about is 60-minute normalized power. So if you're racing a bunch and you get a high 60-minute normalized power above your FTP, then that might be an indicator. Okay, so you might have an indicator there as well. You might get an indicator in a workout itself based on the drop-off of the power distribution chart. So this one doesn't have a big drop-off here, but sometimes you'll see this drop-off from one to the other one, and that will show you when an indicator there is. And I talk about that in our book, Training, Racing, Power Meter. All right, so let's see. Great questions there. Great questions. All right, so let's go in here and let's address some of these questions that I'm getting here on the GoToMeeting. Okay, good question. Did you see the article in the April issue of Bell News about Polarize versus Sweepable spot training? If so, have any value or twist to add? Great question. So there was a really good little simple article explaining the difference between Polarize and sweet spot training. Polarized training is training, very easy or training very hard. So basically the advocates to say, okay, go out and ride endurance pace, or go out and ride at anaerobic capacity and just, kill yourself, VO2 max. So, you're kind of, and I'll show you the old training zones here thing again. You're either training here at level 2 or you're training here at VO2 max anaerobic capacity. Skipping over a lot of this tempo stuff and even some of this threshold stuff. It's hard to do that unless you got a lot of time. And then if you got a lot of time, then you can go out and ride for 4 or 5 hours at endurance pace. So kind of like the article is like, well, who actually has time to do that? Not a lot of us. So most of the athletes I coach are masters athletes. I mean, I coach a handful of pros, but and they have time to do this. But even my pros, we ride a lot at sweet spot. They do tempo and they do sweet spot and they do threshold and they hit all of these areas and they do 5-hour, 6-hour rides, and they do endurance pace and they've got hard intervals in them as well. So they're doing everything. I'm not a big fan of the whole Polarize training. I think that it works for some people, but I think that it's very difficult for most of us. I think it is just a challenge. For most of us, if we went out and rode for 3 or 4 hours in endurance pace, we'd probably be getting out of shape because it's not long enough to really address your endurance, and then it's not hard enough to address your FTP. All right, so hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. Good question, Tim. All right, here we go. Lactate threshold intervals add up to 60 minutes in total. If you can do up to 60 minutes in total, that's great. But the gold standard is an hour at your threshold, right? That's your FTP, your best average power that you can do for an hour without fatiguing. So that's your FTP. So do 60-minute intervals. If you can do 3 times 20, do 3 times 20. If you can do 6 times 10, do 6 times 10. Do what you can do. If you can do 30 minutes of threshold work, then do 3 times 10 or 2 times 15 or 1 times 30 minutes. Okay, so do what you can do. I would build up to these, and if you're a Cat 3, you probably need to do 4 times 20, and you probably won't have to do too much more after that. I would like to start racing here, and what FTP should I expect for a Cat 5 criterium so it's actually worth getting in the mix? Well, we have to know what your weight is, because weight is important because it's a power-weight ratio game. Although in criterium is not quite so much. However, we still do need to know what your weight is for a good answer there. Let's say, for example, you weighed 170 pounds. If you weigh 170 pounds, then you probably need a FTP around the 240 to 250 watt range. That's probably where you need to be. In WKO, we've got this great thing called the power profile. This helps for you to look and see where you are. So, for example, this athlete is a Category 5 in sprinting, but is a Category 3 at 1 minute and a Category 3 at 5 minutes, and then a very good Category 3, or almost, kind of reaching towards Cat 2 at threshold power. All right? So you can use the power profile to figure out where you need to be in order to get out there and mix it up and know that you're fit enough to be there. So I would highly recommend that one. All right. What's the benefit of doing a 30-minute time trial power test versus 20-minute? I don't know if there's more time, more training stress. That'd be the only reason that I would say. Again, do a 60-minute one. What's the benefit versus a 20-minute? Well, you get more training stress. It's just training. If you think that you've got a really high anaerobic capacity, like your anaerobic ability, your 1 minute power and your 2 minute power is really good, and you can go really hard and recover really fast at 1 and 2 minutes, then going a little longer might smooth out some of that influence that you have on there. So for folks who have a high anaerobic ability, they are probably going to need to subtract at least 5% off that 20-minute number, maybe even 7% off that 20-minute number to get to what they can do for an hour. 30 minutes, it's going to get rid of some of those initial first 4 or 5 minutes where you were going above your threshold. So maybe it might smooth a little better. But again, mainly just training stress. All right. How valuable do you think LeftRight power meter system is for athletes recovering from a knee injury. So the LeftRight power meters are very interesting from a perspective of being able to do lots of new things and focus on all those different things. The left and right is getting there. All right, so some of them aren't that great. Some of them are very good. Everybody has a leg strength discrepancy. Everybody pedals and produces power differently. Okay, so some people produce power more with their quadricep on their left leg, but then on their right leg, they may be producing power with their hamstring. Okay, so in their glute. So everybody is a little different here in that area. It's challenging to learn this until you actually are able to do it, and see what your left and right leg are doing. I think that the benefit for any kind of injury would be very great. If you had a left and right power meter on any kind of injury, I would say it'd be excellent, because you can really see like what has happened and then where. Where do you need to improve? So I would highly recommend it. If you've got that, then I would definitely do it. We're going to show you a ton of left-right data in our upcoming release of version 4 WKO. A ton of data. We got a ton of data. We've been working really hard on that. We've got lots of new concepts coming out that nobody's really seen before, so it should be really exciting to see that. I presented this now twice, 3 times, and in different seminars. It showed lots of folks the left-right power data and what it means and how it works. It was everybody in the whole room, basically at the end of that presentation, all wanted to go buy left-right power meters right away. It was kind of like, wow, we should have had like 20 or 30 of these in the room. We could have sold them all right now. So, there's a lot more data. There's a lot of interesting things there. It's not going to be valuable for some folks, but for most people, other folks. All right, here we go. Another great question. Is it better to do an FTP test outdoors versus indoors? Well, if you're riding outdoors most of the time, like, you're always pretty much outdoors, then I would do the FTP test outdoors. All right. If you're riding indoors most of the time, then I would do it indoors. All right. So for most of us on the East Coast of the United States, in the winter we go and ride on our trainers from December through February. And so you do your FTP test indoors. Then when you go outdoors and now you're outside and riding more in March and April, then you test outside. And here's my zones outside, here's my zones inside. Now, for those of you that are challenged in big cities, can't find a good road or place to do your FTP test on, then indoors might be the place to do it. And if you know the difference between what you can do indoors and outdoors, then just put a factor on top of it and say, well, I'm always 20 watts higher outdoors than I am indoors. I cracked out 270, so I'm going to be at 290 outdoors. So that way you can kind of play with that. But consistency is key. All right, I've been told that my standard warm-up should be 5 minutes zone 1, then 5 minutes zone 2, then 5 minutes zone 3, with 2 minutes rest followed by 2 minutes of zone 5, rest 2 minutes, another 2 minutes rest, zone 5, rest 3 minutes followed by 90 seconds at 9:10. Is it too much or not enough? Everybody's warm-up is different in what you like. You need to figure that out for yourself, unfortunately. Remember the purpose of the warm-up. All right. The purpose of the warm-up is to prepare both your cardiovascular system and your muscular system for an intense effort. And it's also there to make sure that you balance it, right? You want to get warm, but you don't want to give away any energy that's going to take away from your event, right? So you don't want to do too much. All right. So that's a key thing you have to keep in mind as well. this is a fine warm-up. You know, it's building you up to a hard effort, then makes you do a really hard effort to get over what I call the I don't call it, I mean, it's common knowledge, the fight or flight syndrome, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system transition. And what you need to do is you always have to have that, right? You always have to have in your warm-up for a race, you have to have this crazy hard effort for a minute or 2 minutes where you go and you kind of blow up a little bit, all right? You make the muscles feel fat, your heart rate skyrockets, you know, your body thinks, there's a bear chasing me, there's a bear chasing me, right? And then you're like, oh, no, no, there's not a bear chasing you, you're just on your bicycle about to do a bicycle race. And then, you know, you get over that, right? You get over that fight or flight response, and now you're like, oh, okay, now I'm good. The legs release a little bit, you know, they get a little more supple, and then you can start to get into a rhythm. So I like to do some fast pedaling drills in the beginning. So my standard warm-up is fast pedaling drills. Let me show you my warm-up here that I like to give my athletes. And again, this is just a sample. Everybody has to do different ones, and I have athletes that do all kinds of crazy ones. This one's just and that's fine, whatever works for them. This one's one that I do for TTs and for any race. 4 times 1 minute fast pedaling efforts. You know, the goal is to get the muscles prepared, right? And then I have them do a 5-minute ramp. So similar to what you've said here, but I have them ramp up in 5 minutes, and then in minute 4 to 5, they're at their threshold. All right? So they're at their threshold. And then they rest for 5 minutes easy, and they do another ramp. They rest for 5 minutes, and then they do a hard 30 seconds. That's to really just kind of blow it out, make sure you get over the fight or flight syndrome, ride around easy for 10 minutes, done. You're ready for your time trial, ready for your crit, you're ready for your road race, whatever you want to do. I like that one. That's one that I've used for years, but this is also a good one too. So just keep trying, find out what you like there. Does it matter if you have sharp bends in your FTP tests? Of course. If you got to slow down, then it's definitely going to hurt your numbers. So if you can do it on a flatter, straighter road, that'd be great. But you know that it's going to impact you there a little bit as well. So yeah, better it'd be the straighter and less curvy as possible. I had a client who lives in Rio in Brazil, and he does his FTP tests on a road that has roundabouts, and it's perfect for where he rides. He can go down the road. It's a 2 kilometer each way. He goes down and then goes around a roundabout and comes back 2 kilometers. So it's a little over 4 kilometers for his ride, and so he just does laps. And you know, he's gotten really good at going around the turns at keeping significant power up. So we know that it comes down just a little bit, but at the same time, he's pretty solid all the way through. So anyhow, here we go. I've got a couple more questions I didn't quite get to. We know the importance of good recovery for optimal gains, but how do you define optimal recovery when we're taking on harder efforts at level 4 or 5? That's a great question. It's very challenging to define optimal recovery because a lot of times that means something different for everybody, and it also has a lot to do with your the depth at which you were at. Okay, so let me show you another athlete here. Their FTP chart or their performance manager chart here. This was an article that I wrote for Road Magazine, part of an article I wrote for Road Magazine that just came out recently. So if you get Road Magazine, check it out. It's a great article talking about the progression of an athlete over 5 years of data. Now, if you don't get Road Magazine, you should, because it's an awesome magazine. So hopefully you'll like it. And let's see if this thing will pull up. Hopefully this graphic will pull up. If it will not, then I will go to the screenshot itself and see what I can come up with. Yeah, there we go. Okay, here we go. Let's come down here. Here we go. All right, so this is this athlete's PMC chart, and I'll kind of make this big here. Notice here, this was October. From October all the way to the end of December, he didn't really rest at all, and he had not a single day of positive TSB. All right, so he was building up for a big stage race in January and wanted to do really, really well. All right, so he did October, November, December, 3 months, 12 weeks without a single day positive TSB. All right, so he was able to really do that. But notice what I did, right? I gave him little rest periods. Okay, so I gave him little rest periods. We kind of dig into that a little bit more. You can see it here a little better. You can see that, okay, starting out here, he got a little bit of rest period. He's recovering, but then that allows him to do another big training block, and then he recovers a little bit. You know, he comes from negative 58 all the way up to negative 5.9. So he's recovering, but then he goes back into training, right? And then he back to train, back to train, back to train. And then I recover him just a little bit. He had a big down here, negative 75, recovers back to negative 30, able to do some more, right? So I'm still giving him some recovery. And notice here towards the end, when we're getting closer and closer to his taper period, I'm getting him more and more recovered kind of in between these bouts, these blocks of training, so to speak. So I'm listening to him, you know, and at the same time, you know, I want to hear, hey, I'm feeling better, my legs aren't so sore, I can do these intervals, and I'm looking at power, right? If you go out and you can't do the intervals, and then you're too tired, right? So if you go out and you can't do them, then rest, right? Just rest. And then you'll get better, you know, just rest. So many people just want, I want to just like go out and drag it along, and it's like, you know what, it's better just to rest. Get off your bike, go and ride, just go rest. Your body's going to recover faster, you're going to get better from it. You know, and that feels different for everybody, right? I mean, you can be sore but still do great training, right? You can be tired and still get a big training benefit. You know, I mean, it can still be perfectly fine. I had an athlete who was training for a big event, and their normal heart rate at threshold was 175. But their power at threshold is usually 350, 340. But they were coming on form, but they were also fatigued, and all of a sudden he starts putting out 360, 370. His power comes up, but his heart rate's going down now because he's tired, and he's doing a heart rate of 165, so 10 beats below his normal threshold heart rate, but he's doing 370, 380 watts even. So it's like, keep training, man. Keep training. Don't worry about your heart rate. You're doing great. You've got power. You're producing power. You're creating training stress. You're getting better even so. And then when he rested, his heart rate went up to 182. So it was like, wow, he really got lots of good rest in there and had a super compensation from that. So definitely, you know, just keep that in mind. When you are really fresh, okay, so if you are trying to get really fresh for an event, and the feeling in the legs, it's like you have restless leg syndrome, right? It's like you're a pent-up animal. It's like the legs are twitching, the muscles are twitching, and you're about to, like, you can't sit still, right? You're about to bust out of your chair and go run around the block, right? You just can't sit still, right? That's when your glycogen stores are really high and you're really well rested. Now, you don't need to be that way for every single race because you wouldn't train enough to do that. But maybe for a few races a year, you get that feeling, and then you know that you are really, really ready. So that's a key thing there. All right, I got time for one more question here. So, in a mountain bike race, where should I be training more, in power zone 4, 5, or 6? My races are typically 90 minutes. Well, so mountain bike races are a combination of those three things. So I would recommend that you do some of each. I don't think you can neglect any of those. And I think you need to make sure that you're doing a little bit of each in there. Mountain bike ultimately is, again, back to FTP, so the majority of your work is going to be at FTP. However, mountain biking also contains a lot of VO2 max work. A lot of 3 minutes, very hard, a lot of efforts there at that you're going really, really, hard in for that VO2 max range. All right, so lots of places there to do that. So I would definitely focus on those things and look at those. Let's look at a power file here for one of my clients. This you can see, and we'll get rid of some of this data here. It's kind of like a lot of junk going on here. You can see, I'll get the black background so you can see it better. You can see it's a big long climb, a plateau, and then downhill. And so in this climb, he's doing bursts in the climb, so he's riding his sweet spot and doing bursts up this climb. Then he's going hard towards the top. And then on this slight downhill, he's doing shorter intervals. I've got him doing 3-minute intervals on the downhill as well. Just kind of getting a variety of work in. So this is a very typical example of kind of some mountain bike training that you might do. So keep that in mind. Do a little bit of each. You got to do, I would say most of it is going to be FTP. The second is going to be VO2 max, and the third is going to be anaerobic capacity. So no hard and fast rule there, but hopefully that'll help. All right, well that is it. I hope I've gotten to your question and all that jazz. So I think that you have lots of good questions here, and I hope I got to most of them. So if what I'll do here is I'll get this to our staff, and then they'll put that get that webinar link out to you so you can watch it again if you like. And I'll also send out at the same time that the warm-up and also fast pedaling drills, so everybody can have a copy of my warm-up and my fast pedaling drills workout. Hopefully that'll work for you guys. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate you attending. I hope you have a great evening. Make it a great day tomorrow, and keep up the great work. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.